Best introduction ever. Thank you. My name's Darren Cox and I have failed. I've also succeeded, but my talk is about the fact that it's all right to fail. And when I actually thought about this speech, because I haven't written it out, I wanted to aim it at people that are in companies in these big buildings that are afraid to fail. But the great thing is we've got loads of young adults here. And I want to tell you, basically, that it's all right to fail. In fact, sometimes you have to fail to win. And it's not just me that says that. There are some very important people that believe actually failure is an important route to make sure that you get to success in the end. So you can't be frightened of trying something on the basis that it might actually not work. So these three people probably know a little bit more about success than I do. And there's my amazing clicker that just worked there. So you probably recognise at least two of the three of those. The gentleman you might not recognise is Jack Ma, the founder of an amazing e-commerce company in China called Alibaba. More of him in a minute. Richard Branson, only as recently as November, posted a blog which was his 10 favourite quotes about failure and made it very, very clear that he believed that failure was absolutely imperative for an entrepreneur. In fact, he said that you don't have a book of rules when you start walking. You fall over, you learn from it, you get up and you walk better. Mr. Ma said of his company that his book about how he got his company up and running would be called Alibaba and the 1001 Mistakes. And he would learn from those mistakes. But my favourite at the moment in terms of these entrepreneurs is Elon Musk, who is everything from the CEO of Tesla, an electric car company, all the way through to the guy that's going to try and get us as individuals commercially into space. And he put this tweet up earlier on in the year. And if you can't read what it says that, well, at least this time the pieces were bigger. He posted on Instagram a picture of his space rocket trying to land on a boat, exploding. Now, can you imagine a traditional, boring, old-fashioned company showing to the world and actually having as a badge of pride something that's a failure? But Elon Musk has said that you have to fail before you succeed. He recognises that is part of the process. He posted a video of a rocket exploding that he didn't have to. It was in the middle of the ocean. No one else saw it. But my favourite bit about this is it won't be the last RUD. So I didn't know what an RUD was, but it's a rapid, unexpected disembarkation or destruction of something, or a crash to us. So this guy was joking about the fact that he was failing, but he knows, as well as we do, that sometimes you have to take that path and learn through failures. So these guys must be right. And they're not the only ones. These are entrepreneurs, very, very successful billionaire entrepreneurs. But it's not just them, the virtual clicker. I was very lucky to listen to a Harvard Business School professor. Now, I went to a normal school, and I didn't get to see people with these brains as big as this guy. And he put this chart up, and there was 50 people in the room, very highly paid executives of different companies. And he said, where would you start a project? And of course, all the bright kids at the front that sit there trying to be teacher's pet put their hands up and say, it's top right. You have to do the right thing, of course, in business, but you also have to do it well. And he said, absolutely not. That is not the way that you get on in business, and that's why you guys will never succeed. And this is what he said. He said you have to start at the bottom right-hand corner. He said to do something well, first of all, you have to do it poorly. And that really struck a chord with me. That means that all these things I was thinking, these ideas that I had, were actually true from an academic big brain as well. So I had this theory that I really needed to try and help my fellow professionals in big companies that basically were sitting in these big offices, scared of failing, really just entrenched in their position, not doing anything, not making any decisions because they didn't want to fail. And I'm sure there's millions of them out there like me that really actually know that they have to take some risks sometimes, but corporate world doesn't let them do that. And I'm sure out there the kids from this school as well probably think exactly the same. They're scared of failing, but you've got to try, as Richard Branson says, as Elon Musk says. So I've, in my experience of failing a lot, have put together 5 key questions that you should ask yourself. And these are them. They're very, very simple. The first one is the risk worth the reward? Now, going to space is probably a pretty good reward, so let's take some risks. So Elon Musk has ticked that box. But in my experience, you've got to be passionate about something. There's no point taking a risk if it isn't something that you are absolutely committed to and will keep pushing through when everyone else tells you it's a stupid idea. Because they will, and you will fail, but you've got to keep going. And this word called insight, what is the insight that makes you take the risk? You have to have something, that light bulb moment if you want. And it shouldn't just be about big data, which of course is the big thing at the moment. I think it's big nonsense, to be quite honest. We're humans. You've got to look into people's eyes and understand what turns them on, what makes them tick, what makes them buy stuff or do something. The perfect example of that to me was a company which was a startup a few years ago, which was called Rent the Runway. 2 young ladies, never had any experience of any commercial business before, and they decided for big parties, for graduations, for proms, they would rent out amazing dresses, very expensive designer dresses, to people. And their insight was, when they got the dresses back, they asked the people that had worn those dresses, how many compliments did you get from wearing that amazing dress? And the ladies said, on average, I got 11 compliments. And they asked their friends who just wore normal dresses from the normal high street, how many compliments did you get? And they said 3. Now, even me, and I'm not a great entrepreneur, not just yet, know that that's a business model, that women are 4 times more likely to get complimented by their peers. That is something that you can take into a business. You've got to have the insight. You've got to have that understanding of human nature. And also, when you look at data, I've got one story from LeMans. And this is about really believing in what you feel. We had the brightest brains from MIT sat around a bank of computers in the middle of the garage. One of our older team members radioed them on the internal radio and said, guys, do we want some rain tyres ready? There's obviously different tyres on racing cars, if it's wet or if it's dry. And these clever guys said, no, the radar says there is no rain for an hour. And to cut a long story short of backwards and forwards about whether it was going to rain or not, he said, why don't you guys come out the back of the garage here, because my hat's getting wet. I think it might rain soon. So this insight, this gut feel is also very important. And also it's looking around and seeing if you can fail with the people that you've started a business with, or a project, or something like this, putting on a TEDx event. Because you've got to assume that you might fail at some point. And if you look around the group of people that you've assembled or you're working with, and you don't really fancy failing with them, that's probably not a good starting point. You have to assume that you might fail, and what would that group do if you failed? And that was an insight, unfortunately, I've only just got very recently. When do you share the risk? This is also something very important, because some people are adverse to risk, and that might be your manager or that might be your company, and at some point you've got to tell them about this amazing idea or this direction you've gone in without them trying to stop your project. One of my previous managers used to say I had an amazing timing of telling him just soon enough that I wasn't in trouble, but late enough that he couldn't stop the project. And that's something that you must be able to do. I should give you some examples another time perhaps. But one of the most important things, and we've heard this from the moment that social media was started and those amazing quotations and message boards that we all get on a Monday morning trying to get us to do stuff, whether it be Colonel Sanders trying to get the Kentucky Fried Chicken business off the ground, whether it be the salesman saying the next no is just one place closer to the yes. You've got to keep going. And that's been something I've always believed in, is perseverance. But some very clever scholars, a lot cleverer than I, put together a chart to explain that. So I just want to share that with you now. It was put together by 2 very clever gentlemen called the Dunning-Kruger partnership, and they call it the Dunning-Kruger effect. And this is used in many, many areas, if you can think about people you've worked with that have too much confidence. But basically, it is The longer that you do something, you get more confident over time. But the big important thing is, at the beginning of a project, you think you know everything. We've all been in that position. You think this is going to be easy. You think a new business is going to be easy, a new project, a new job. And suddenly it dawns on you, it's not that easy. Your confidence goes down to rock bottom as you get further and further through that project. And we've all been at the bottom of that curve. And the most important thing is knowing the longer you try it, if you're trying in the right direction, if you've got that passion, if you've got the right people around you, if you've got the right insight, then you will get there eventually. You will become better and better at what you're doing. You will understand the marketplace. And yes, you might have failed getting there, but you've learnt from those failures, and it will make you and the project and the people around you a better person. So basically, keep going, have the passion, but have that insight that you've got there and grab the right people around you, and it's okay. You can fail on that basis as long as you've got that vision that's going forward. So yes, I've failed in the past. We mentioned the LeMans project. It was actually the slowest car at LeMans. It was revolutionary. It was the slowest car at LeMans. But we were the fans' favourite. Off track, everybody loved that project. Everybody loved the fact that we, as a big company, were prepared to fail at doing something completely different. We weren't going to be like everybody else. So sometimes failure and success are also measured differently. Sometimes from one angle, a failure can look very, very different, and in fact, from another angle can look like success. But my main point today is don't be afraid of failing, because it's something you have to do on the way to a successful project or indeed a successful career. Thank you very much.